one that is a Chinese team. So I'll look at that. But anyway, for next week, can you make sure that you're there at 9:15 to rehearse? 9:15 next Sunday, and of course I'll see you this Thursday. All right, so we're gonna rehearse up there. Thursday here, we're gonna rehearse back here. Assuming, I think the only conflict was the weekends, but Sylvia's working that out. So I'll remind everybody. Well, we'll probably rehearse it on Thursday, so then you can give it.
Yeah, she'll be here.
It sounds like that's right. It's like a private island or Yes.
Well, good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the First Parish in Lincoln. We are so glad that you're with us as we continue on our journey this morning of nurturing spirituality, building community, and pursuing justice. It is a seismic weekend in our world, isn't it? The ceasefire in Gaza has gone into effect. Tomorrow, the United States inaugurates our next president. And all of this happens in the context of a holiday where we honor the life and prophecy of Martin Luther King. Our worship theme this month at the First Parish is Building Bridges. And if you turn to the cover of your bulletin for a second, you can see a picture of King leading a march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, a bridge which, despite being named after a KKK leader, has become a site of pilgrimage for many, many people due to the courage of civil rights activists. One of the bridges and connections that we cherish here at FPL is our relationship to the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry in Roxbury. There's a plaque back there for our own James de Normandy, and about 100 years ago, he served what was then the first church in Roxbury. And through the efforts of Alice de Normandy and many other of you, we have maintained close ties as a member church supporting the UUUM's mission. Back in October, about 12 of us visited the UUUM and took a tour of their campus. And this morning, we are overjoyed to welcome back to the pulpit Reverend Mary Margaret Earle. Let's give a big welcome to Mary Margaret. Mary Margaret, of course, has served as Executive Director and Senior Minister of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry for the last 10 years. We look forward to your words later on in our service. I want to thank everyone who has worked hard this weekend and all throughout the year to keep things humming behind the scenes at the First Parish. Gratitude for the altar flowers this morning given by Judy Casarella in honor of her father, Earl. A special welcome to you if you might be visiting with us this morning. I would love to chat with you after the service. We'll have coffee hour and treats right through these doors. And a big hello, let's wave to everyone who is with us online and perhaps even in the future on our Altar Live, our virtual community this morning as well. You're very welcome. Friends, here at the First Parish, we are carrying on the traditions of our Unitarian, Universalist, and congregational heritage, but we are also seeking. We are hungry for the new light that is ready to break forth, which means that whoever you are, wherever you happen to be on your journey today, you are most welcome here. I would invite us now to rise as we're able, in body or spirit, as we join together in our opening words. They come from the Lakota prophet and healer known as Black Elk. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things of the Spirit, and the shapes as they must live together, like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle, wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children. And I saw that it was holy.
faithfully in saying our covenant, in the love of truth, and in the Spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all.
And friends, now we take a moment in our service to remind ourselves that this journey that we're on is not possible without the gift of community, without the joy that other people bring into our lives. I would invite you to take a moment now to turn to a neighbor, maybe greet someone you haven't met yet or haven't seen in a long time, and offer a sign of peace. Let's share the peace together. Our first reading this morning comes from the first letter to the Corinthians. And if you ask me, it's one of the best metaphors for what a community really is that we'll find in the Bible. So let's listen for the Spirit to speak. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free. And we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And the parts that we think are less honorable, we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it.
We come now to the time in our service that we set aside for silent and spoken prayer. To prepare ourselves, remaining seated, we sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
We continue in prayer now by lifting up those people and places that are on our hearts this morning. If you have a prayer that you'd like to share with us, please raise your hand, and Christina and I will make our way around with the 2 microphones. If you're with us online, we'd love to hear from you as well. For what and for whom do we pray this morning?
This is a prayer for my loss of my cousin Sarah Haffensteiner this week, and she had suffered for many years with Alzheimer's, and I'm just wishing her wonderful family can reconnect in their hearts to the amazing person that she was.
I'd like to offer a prayer for all those who are sitting in fear and uncertainty, trembling with fear of what may come. And for those of us that find ourselves in that group, I wish us all equanimity.
Please hold the Ritchie family in your hearts today as they celebrate the life of Russell Ritchie later today.
I'd like to offer a prayer this morning for the caregivers, for the people who are putting their hearts into taking care of our elderly, our infirm, for parents who are taking care of children. Just to be with them, give them open hearts, give them patience, give them grace.
A prayer for family and friends in Los Angeles who've been displaced or feeling traumatized, for all those they love missing their community and don't know where they'll be.
I'd like to offer a prayer that as the headlines cover the major dramas and violence, wars, and they're all in the headlines, that we don't forget that there are people whose everyday lives are troubled and threatened, but there's not enough attention paid. And I just hope we can remember that we all matter.
I would just like to lift up a prayer for Deanna and Edwin Alanima and everything that they are facing in the coming days and weeks. We lift up all these prayers, both those spoken out loud and those uttered in the silence of our hearts. Amen.
There are places you go where you need a lift, a break, maybe just a bone, a place to be that isn't home, a place to be born, reborn, but that feels like home, feels like something unbroken, special, gilded. That place is your next stop, the new you, the improved version, the speeded up, slimmed down way that you will be now, to take off to, the now, the forever, the zone that includes all good things and things to come that will never, ever disappoint you or let you down. There is a person, what name matters not, who guides and helps you to decide to walk through the open door or not, to see what lies behind or stay. Everything that made you can break you. We are all looking, all curious. The bridge that spans the sky is luminous only now because of us, because of what we are seeking. The inevitable end is constructed by each bridge we cross. We must leap the chasm to learn what comes next. There's no peering around the corner. Can you change after so many years? There's a vast chasm between knowing something and knowing something. Like a student learning to learn, a sunrise, a view from a cliff, where you see the world of it before it sees itself. Circling a canyon, above us a hawk, above him sky, below us earth, beyond us our imagination. Everything that made you ends here. Now it is all up to you. Will the ushers please come forward to receive this morning's offering?
Let's actually hold off on the offering for 1 minute and join together in our unison prayer.
Yeah. Whoops. This is adopted from Martin Luther King Jr. Most gracious and all-wise God, before whose face the generations rise and fall, thou in whom we live and move and have our being, we thank thee for all thy good and gracious gifts, for life and for health, for food and for raiment, for the beauties of nature and the love of human nature. We come before thee, painfully aware of our inadequacies and shortcomings. We realize that we stand surrounded with the mountains of love, and sometimes we deliberately dwell in the valley of hate. We stand amid the forces of truth and deliberately lie. For these sins, forgive. Break the spell of that which blinds our minds. Purify our hearts that we may see thee. O God, in these turbulent days, when fear and doubt are mounting high, give us broad visions, penetrating eyes, and power of endurance. Help us to work with renewed vigor for a warless world, for a better distribution of wealth, and for a human family that transcends race or color. Amen. Now, will the ushers please come forward to receive this morning's offering? ask that we may use these gifts wisely and well, both to nurture the life of this congregation and to further the goals of justice and peace throughout the world.
Our second reading is an excerpt from The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together by Heather McGee. The American landscape was once graced with resplendent swimming pools, some big enough to hold thousands of swimmers at a time. In the 1920s, towns and cities tried to outdo one another by building the most elaborate pools. In the 1930s, the Works Progress Administration put people to work building hundreds more. By World War II, the country's 2,000 pools were glittering symbols of a new commitment by local officials to the quality of life for their residents, allowing tens of thousands of people to socialize together for free. By the 1950s, the fight to integrate America's prized public swimming pools would demonstrate the limits of white commitment to public goods. In Montgomery, Alabama, the Oak Park Pool was the grandest one for miles, the crown jewel of the Parks Department that also included a zoo, a community center, and a dozen other public parks. Dorothy Moore was a white teenage lifeguard when a federal court deemed the town's segregated recreation unconstitutional. Suddenly, Black children would be able to wade into the deep end with white children at the Oak Park pool. At the rec center, Black elders would get chairs at the card tables. The reaction of the city council was swift. Effective January 1st, 1959, the Parks Department would be no more. The council decided to drain the pool rather than share it with their Black neighbors. Of course, the decision meant that white families lost a public resource as well. It was miserable, Mrs. Moore told a reporter 5 decades later. Uncomprehending white children cried as the city contractors poured dirt in the pool, paved it over, and seeded it with grass that was green by the time summer came along again. To defy desegregation, Montgomery would go on to close every single public park and padlock the doors of the community center. It even sold off the animals in the zoo. The entire public park system would stay closed for over a decade. Even after it reopened, they never rebuilt the pool. Today, we don't even notice the absence of the grand pools in our communities. Where grass grows over former sites, there are no plaques to tell the story of how racism drained the pools. But the spirit that drained these public goods lives on. The impulse now manifests itself in a subtler fashion, more often in a pool of public resources than a literal one. So ends our reading. So good morning to you. Good morning. It is good to be back in Lincoln, and I want to thank Reverend Nate and Reverend Kit for welcoming me back this morning. My colleague, Maggie Paula, back there, is here with me today, and she will be in the social hour with materials, telling you more about the urban ministry if you are interested after the service. Lincoln is one of 46 congregations around Greater Boston that are connected to the work of the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry as members, as you heard Reverend Nate speak to earlier. And the urban ministry was founded about 200 years ago by a Unitarian minister who was striving for social justice in Boston with the combined power of Unitarian congregations. And congregations like Lincoln continue to play an important role in our work to dismantle racism and to work for social, racial, and economic justice. Today, the urban ministry has a youth program that serves BIPOC high school students from Boston. We have a domestic violence shelter that serves families who are rebuilding their lives. And we partner with Roxbury businesses and nonprofits, bringing congregations and the Roxbury community together for change. Lincoln delegates to the urban ministry are Alice DeNormandy and Gary Taylor, who work to share information between us, and I thank them for their service. Our history, as you heard, goes back together. Our history together goes back. It can be traced to Reverend DeNormandy, and like you have a plaque that tells the story of Reverend DeNormandy here, and in our meeting house, which we inherited in Roxbury, we also have a plaque with his name. You are part of us in memory and in fact. Generations of the DeNormandy family stay connected to us, from Reverend DeNormandy. Martha DeNormandy served on our board, and her children continue to support us. And there are other ties between us. You once gave us a grant to help us buy the van that we use to transport young people home. Thank you. And as a congregation, you've supported and sponsored our summer employment program. And it is a pleasure to have this moment to thank some of the folks here who make our work possible. Friends like Barbara Leggett, Kathy Brobeck, Emily Haslett, Priscilla Damon, Jackie Lenth, and Andy Fallender, for all those who support our work. Thank you. So this morning, I wanted to share a trip that I took this past September to the Canadian Rockies as I was reflecting on my 10 years of serving at the urban ministry. This fall marked my first decade there. Has anyone else have been to the Canadian Rockies here? It's really beautiful, right? Yeah. I hiked in this stunning landscape, looking back at what I've learned in the work at the urban ministry as I climbed up steep elevation, adjusting an awkward backpack, taking in views of glaciers and azure blue water. It wasn't easy going up, and I bruised my toes coming down, but it was a wondrous trip. And I thought of how it was like the work for justice, bit by bit, sometimes hard and uncomfortable, and with unexpected gifts along the way. I looked back at arriving in Roxbury in November of 2014, when it became clear that the work before us was more than our programs. There was this core question beneath: how would we address racism in Greater Boston? We're an historically white-led organization in the heart of Boston's historic African-American community, and we're encircled by suburban white congregations who are reaching out to us to help make change. I was gripped by the challenge and also the potential, and how much I had to learn to get my arms around all of it. But before I could do that, before I could get my arms around it, I was called on to preach in pulpits like this. I brought no expertise my first season, no profound message. I brought my questions. What did it mean to be a white-led organization in Roxbury? How do we forge real relationships across difference? How do we make change that really matters? I began simply listening, learning, and following. In these 10 years, the police officers who killed Michael Brown were not indicted, sparking the Black Lives Matter movement. We witnessed the election of 2016 and the killing of George Floyd. White people were shaken out of a collective slumber. We learned that the waters of racism in the United States go deep. And the more that I've learned, the deeper those waters go. I first learned about the health, wealth, and educational disparities that mean Black people live poorer and die sooner than white people. There's a 23-year difference in life expectancy in Roxbury and Whiteback Bay, just 1 mile away. And the waters go deeper still. I learned about the racism that is baked into the systems that birth those statistics, the prison, healthcare, and food systems. African Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white people. Only half of African Americans have private health insurance versus 75% of white people. And 22% of Black people in the United States experience food insecurity, twice the rate of white people. And those waters, those deep waters, grew colder. I learned how these systems are rooted in enslavement, how the police system grew out of slave patrols, how founding fathers like Thomas Jefferson were themselves enslavers whose economic well-being was secured through bondage. How after the Civil War, the prison system replaced enslavement as Blacks were charged with petty crimes and sentenced to hard labor, sometimes working in the very same fields where plantations once stood. I learned that we cannot disentangle modern educational, housing, and economic systems from this history. Racism isn't a fistful of solvable problems, it is foundational. And to move forward in any meaningful way on our nation's and our region's social ailments, we must face it together. I packed a book on my trip to the Rockies, and it was the book that we heard from earlier, The Sum of Us by researcher Heather McGhee. She began her research after the 2016 election when many of us were asking, why did people not vote in their own self-interest? Do you remember asking that question? Why do people not vote in their own self-interest? She looked at the racism that showed itself in the election and in our nation's political turmoil. Her thesis is this: our country's ongoing struggle for meaningful healthcare reform, positive economic change, even investment in infrastructure like roadways, our struggle to achieve collective good despite our abundant wealth and resources can be traced to enslavement. White people, McGee writes, have been conditioned to believe in a zero-sum equation, that if people of color gain, they lose. And the stronger a person's racial resentment, the likelier to reject policies and investments that benefit all of us, including themselves. McGee asserts that etched deeply into the white psyche is a value that is placed on whiteness. And when whites see black people in the swimming pool, they'd rather not have a pool than to be in it with them and erase the status conferred by whiteness. And it is this deep-seated disfigurement of the white psyche that billionaire titans and political tacticians lean into with racist dog whistles to keep us separated and to maintain their power and control. It especially harms people of color, and that cannot be overstated, but it also doesn't serve any of us except for very few at the top. She writes, racism works against non-wealthy white Americans. It lowers their support for government actions that could help them economically out of a zero-sum fear that could help the racialized undeserving as well, end quote. McGee draws a through line showing how this zero-sum thinking has collapsed unions that could advocate for all workers, how it's powered disinvestment of public services like higher education. When more students of color began attending college, she writes, public funding dried up. College students of color 40 years ago were just 1 in 6. Now they're near half. Parallel to that rise in BIPOC students came cuts to per student funding. In the past 30 years, public college tuition has almost tripled. She posits that it's why states like Texas refuse Medicare expansion, refusing what's basically for them free federal funding that would mean all rural Texans would have better access to hospitals. The refusal is a fear that expanding public health care would draw and serve more people of color. Black people suffer the most from racism, but our whole human family is harmed. Solidarity, she says, is the answer. Solidarity is the answer. She quotes a longtime activist she interviewed in her research, quote, if we didn't have these sharp divisions based on race, we could make enormous progress in terms of making sure that people are not hurting as badly as they are or deprived of what clearly are the necessities of life. And McGee continues, over the years that I have sought answers to why a fairer economy is elusive, it has become clear to me that how white people understand what's right and wrong about our diverse nation, who belongs and who deserves, is determining our collective course. That's the crux of it, she writes. Can we swim together in the same pool or not? It's a political question, yes, and one with economic ramifications, but at its core, she writes, it's a moral question. And it is a question for us as people of faith. I no longer believe that we can advance justice in the United States in a meaningful way without dealing with the history of enslavement and its inherited racism, not in fighting climate change or fighting hunger. Racism cannot be separated from the rest of our social justice commitments because it is part and parcel of it. And that means that we must build connection and solidarity across race in Greater Boston. In our segregated world, that can seem daunting, but as people of faith, let us not be daunted. We are simply called to begin. We are called to do what we can in as many ways as we can for as long as we can. After 10 years of the urban ministry, I still bring to your pulpit no more expertise than when I began. But what I have is a conviction that building relationships across race is foundational for justice work. And I come with the same strategies as the year I arrived. To build real connections, those of us who are white need to listen and learn and follow. At the urban ministry, we listen to the community to guide us forward. In partnership with the Roxbury Historical Society, we began research into the history of enslavement by the congregation of First Church Roxbury, whose church and campus we inherited and inhabit. We published a report citing the names of 58 enslaved persons owned by First Church Roxbury congregants, with even the very first minister an enslaver. And we asked Roxbury community members to guide us forward from there. For the past year, neighbors have charted our course, seeking to learn more about the individual lives of those named in the report and to track their genealogy to find whether there are descendants living in Roxbury today. It might seem that the urgency is confronting the racial injustices that are happening right now, and yes, that is important. But the Black community says this also matters: historic truth-telling, making the past visible, and deeply honoring the lives of those who were dishonored by our religious ancestors. This matters urgently too. And we learn. For the past 5 years, we've held a series of webinar lectures, which we call Community Conversations, and we invite in BIPOC leaders to speak to the challenges facing the Black community in Boston. They've spoken on gentrification and displacement, educational inequity, the racial wealth gap, poor health outcomes. We learn for an ever-deepening understanding of past and present. We've built a tours program that is led by local community members that highlights the history of the community we stand in. These stories tell the story of how public art in Nubian Square, how its glorious murals grew out of the work of graffiti artists, or about the trees of John Eliot Square and how important the tree canopy is in urban spaces. BIPOC students in our after-school program design their own tours of the neighborhood, highlighting what matters most to them about their community and offer these tours to others. Young people share their history and their hope. And we follow. Our work in partnership has deepened. When the NAACP asked us to fill a bus to go to an action in Washington, D.C., Unitarian Universalists filled the bus and went to D.C. As the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute addresses violence in the city, we stand behind them, inviting congregations to join the Mother's Day Walk for Peace in Dorchester. When City Life, Vida Urbana, asks us to stuff envelopes, we stuff envelopes. We build solidarity by showing up again and again in the spirit of listening and learning. We heard from the book of Corinthians about the importance of remembering that we are all connected. Quote, "But God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concerns for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it." When you enter the doors of the urban ministry, you see on the entry wall a quote by the Aboriginal activist Lila Watson. It says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." These words resonate as a spiritual truth, but there is a very concrete truth here too. one that the sum of us reminds us. The truth that until we grapple with the history of enslavement and racism and bridge our divide and commit to working in solidarity, we will not be free, not any of us, of what ails us. We need to work together. On my last long hike in the Canadian Rockies, we climbed up Larch Valley to Sentinel Pass, steadily making a 2,500-foot elevation gain to a stunning view. And then we began our descent. And as we descended, we came upon startled hikers warning that a grizzly bear was on the trail ahead. She was in a state of what is called hyperphagia, a trance-like focus on eating enough calories for winter. Our hike leaders reminded us of what is called for when faced with grave danger. Make noise, people, and stick together. And so we held close and began singing until we were safely through and the trail ended. That's what will get us through the hard and dangerous days ahead, friends. Let us sing loudly, reach out to the whole human family, and stick together. And may it be so.
Please join me in saying our call to ministry. We go forth from the worship of God to be faithful to the vision of Jesus, to affirm each person's dignity, and to cherish the living earth.
I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us this morning, and to Mary Margaret for your wonderful words and your visit. Please join us if you have time for coffee hour through those doors, a chance to visit with Mary Margaret, introduce yourself if you haven't, to meet Maggie as well, and of course to spend some time with one another. And now let's listen for a word of blessing.
Go out in courage. Stick tight together. Sing loudly and reach out beyond these walls to a wider community. Go out in courage and in faith.
Amen. Thank you, choir. We may be seated as we move now into our time of announcements. I have 3 brief things that I'm going to kick off the announcement time with. On Tuesday at noon, in the aftermath of the inauguration, Kit, my co-minister, is offering a time over Zoom for community support and pastoral care. There will be a link in an e-blast that will go out tomorrow with that Zoom link. Anybody is welcome to join her online. And then that same day, Tuesday at night, we have our first parish council meeting of this church year. The parish council is a time when all the different committee leaders pop up on Zoom and share for 2 minutes about what their committees have been up to. And everybody is invited to tune in if you're curious. It's a great and really inspiring way to stay up to date on what our different committees are doing. Dwight Gertz, our parish committee chair, will be leading that meeting. And then lastly from me, I just want to point your attention to what's happening next Sunday. We're really excited about this intergenerational service. It's going to be up the hill in the Parish House Auditorium. Beckham, who is here, and Mac and Charlotte, we hope you guys are excited for this. We're going to have this amazing group called NUA. They are a female group of lion dancers, and they're going to be with us at the beginning of our service next Sunday in the Parish House to help us celebrate the Lunar New Year. So we're looking forward to that next Sunday. We hope you can join us. What other announcements do we want to lift up this morning?
Good morning. I'm Joan Kimball, and I'm with the First Parish Meditation Sangha. And tomorrow we have been planning a time of reflection in honor of Martin Luther King and in honor of peace and honor of justice. And it will be at noon, and we'll have 5 minutes of silence, and then we will have a poem each by Mary Oliver and one by Wendell Berry. We will have many quotes from Martin Luther King. There will be prayers and sharings, and I hope you all can join us. We had also planned to have a peace march earlier, peace walk from the Stone Church to here, and it was in solidarity with the Holy Land, because there on the same day, January 20th, there's going to be a march led by Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and we wanted to walk in solidarity with that. It was going to be no signs, just flowers. However, there is going to be a snowstorm tonight. So, and we're canceling the peace walk. And it will be, we will hold the hour of reflection, and for anyone who can come. And I will be out front with a shovel, and I'll shovel the steps. We'll come in through the sanctuary and go into the Stearns room. So I hope you can join me. I didn't mean to make it this loud, but the snowstorm. So come if you can, and not if you can't.
Hi, I'm Barbara O'Neill. I'm chair of the Deacons. Many of you may know what I'm going to announce. The Deacons are very excited about our Lenten booklet this year. And Lenten booklet, for those who may not know, is a collection of writing by members and friends of First Parish on a certain subject. And they are compiled to be read over the period of Lent as a period of reflection. So we will have that in your mailbox on March, whatever it is, March 15th. But we need submissions. And the topic this year is turning points. Or for some, a turning point is easier to kind of grab onto. I gave a writing workshop last week. We had a great turnout. People have already submitted things they wrote that night. So I'm going to tell you what I did, because I've been asked how I guided people. And I'll be brief. But we did a lot of warm-up writing, but one thing I asked people to do was to write 5 turning points in their lives. 5 times when their mind changed, when something changed, that even looked back, didn't know it was a turning point then, but looked back and realizing it was. So 5 turning points in your life. Choose one. Write for 10 minutes. Keep your hand moving. And then do it again. What, Sarah?
I said then submit it.
And then submit it. And then do it again, just to have another choice. You could do it 5 times, all 5. But it really gets you going, because don't be stuck. Don't just stare at the page, get yourself writing. So we did that, and I hope that might help all of you get going. Because please, I was thinking about the body and all the pieces of the body that is one, and we need all the pieces of the body that is First Parish members and friends. So I hope you'll submit, send it in. All the information is in your booklet about where to send it. Many people send them to me, and I love reading them, but I'd like them to also go to Sylvia in the office, who prints them all up. So Sylvia in the office will receive them. If you have any questions for me, I'll be at coffee hour, and thank you for trying.
I have one announcement up from the balcony here. Last year's talent show was such a revelation. The amount of talents that are within this community is really, I think, probably limitless. And if you did not come to the talent show last year, or if you did and you participated, you can participate again this year. It's March 1st, which is a Saturday night. We start at 6:30 up on the stage. We have footlights, which were unearthed by R.L. Smith. And we're going to have all the sound that you need. I'm happy to accompany anybody on a song that they want to sing. But if you have a joke to tell, a skit you want to do, you have 5 minutes. And please send me an email now, or anytime between now and March 1st to let me know that you'd like to be involved. Okay, thanks.
Adam Bailey, and I just want to announce that the newly formed poetry group is going to be meeting this coming Wednesday, January 22nd at 7:30 in the Garrison Room. And you don't have to be a poet to join us. All that's required is an interest in poetry. You could be a poetry appreciator or just poetry curious.
All right, let's go forth to be safe and have fun in the snow. May we go in peace.